So many people say that time heals all wounds, but I realized that that's not actually true in two instances. First, when I heard my great aunt still talking bitterly about someone who had hurt her 50 years prior, and then the second was when I was going through my own heartbreak and I told myself I just needed time, that if I waited long enough that the pain would fade. But instead, I found myself in another dead-end relationship in the same cycle, and that is when it hit me that time alone doesn't heal wounds. It can actually bury them. And what did help my heart though was recognizing that God could carry the weight that I couldn't, and that He wanted to do more than just comfort me. He wanted to actually transform me. In this video, I'll share how to build real peace after a breakup, not by trying to just move on, but by coming to God and letting Him reshape your heart. And this is huge because so many women stay stuck waiting for time to heal what it never can. Yes, it might dull the pain, but it's not going to heal from the root. So if you're new here, I'm Amelia, and I help women prepare for Christ-centered marriages, regardless of their past, regardless of the relationship that they are coming out of. If you want to take a deeper dive on healing from your breakup with God, check out my free workshop in the description box. And without further delay, let's dive into the first point, which is about having a quiet spirit in the midst of chaos. Heartbreak can make our minds so loud and busy, spiraling with the what ifs and the regrets and the what could have beens. I was reading the other day in 1 Peter about having a gentle and quiet spirit, and I've heard this verse all the time growing up, especially as a woman, and I never really stopped to think though about the what or the why behind it. I was driving in my car last week, and I was thinking about this verse, and I feel like all of my revelations happen either in the car or like in a bubble bath, but it hit me that a quiet spirit, like anything related to the spiritual fruit, doesn't just happen randomly or on its own. It's actually something that is very intentionally trained for. And it also reminded me, and this is turning into a walk down memory lane of my brain, but it reminded me of another season where God really was showing me how much consistency matters, that I couldn't be one person 90% of the time and then turn around and expect the rest of my life to look completely different, because every single moment that I was living, every emotion and every thought that I was feeding, I was training for who I wanted to be or didn't want to be. And really all that to say that it just reminded me how much this moment and right now matters so much. And to be clear, a gentle and quiet spirit doesn't mean silence or lack of strength. It means having peace that is rooted in trust. And like we touched on, it's not a given. It's something that's cultivated very intentionally by a pursuit of Him, because that pursuit of Him will change your feelings and your thoughts and your emotions and your actions and honestly all of your life. And it also teaches our hearts to rest in Him instead of going 100 miles per hour. And you might be asking like, okay, but what does that trust actually look like? And that brings us to section number 2, which is that trust comes through living. We trust Him by actually living it out. And I was thinking about it like how I drive in my car. I will go down the road like 35, 40, 50 miles per hour, and I never really stop to question if my brakes will stop. And we've been having brake issues, so I probably should question that, but I usually don't. I just get in and I go. And it's not because I even understand how they work. I've just tested them again and again and again. And I was thinking like, what if our faith is like that too? What if we gave God chance after chance after chance to prove that He is trustworthy, even if it feels super risky, which oftentimes it actually is? Also, like, if we never need God to catch us, then how can He? I love Psalm 34 verse 8, which says, "Taste and see that the Lord is good." And that just reminds me that trust in the Lord comes through experience. I'm not talking about the kind of risk or trust in God that assumes a desirable result, that if you take it, if you do that thing, then it will all work out. Because what I've had to remind myself over and over, and what I want to remind you today, is that obedience is in our control, but the outcome is in God's. And it's so hard sometimes. You might be like, do you hear the words you're saying? Yes, I do. And I have lived them and I've resisted them. And then there have also been times by the Spirit's grace and becoming more and more frequent that I yield to that obedience, even not knowing what the outcome is going to be. But the more that we take those steps of faith, like trusting in God, even when it feels risky, the more that our hearts start to rest in Him. And it's that trust lived out over time that makes real peace possible, even in the midst of heartbreak. Which brings us to the third point about having peace after a breakup, because peace isn't just about moving on, it's about moving closer to God. When I finally stopped trying to push through and finally stopped doing what the world says works when it comes to healing, and I instead committed to allowing God to teach me through the hurt, my entire perspective and identity shifted, and insecurity didn't rule me anymore because my worth wasn't hanging on how someone else saw me, or in what I could do or offer them. And I realized like it wasn't time that healed me, it was God. And I'm not saying that time doesn't help at all. I'm just saying that time alone isn't enough. Like it can numb us, it can make the pain sting less, but time alone can't restore, because only God restores. So if you've been waiting on time to do something that only God can, just remember that when you seek an intimate relationship with Him, that trust will grow and it will lead to deep healing. This is why I created my free breakup workshop, because I know how hard it is to sit in the middle of heartbreak and actually let God do the work. So if you want to learn how to invite God into the beginning steps of that process, I'll leave the link below for you to check it out. So I just want to encourage you that if you are going through a heartbreak, instead of waiting for time to heal it, invite God to, because He's the one who brings peace and redeems and prepares your heart for what's ahead. And if you're thinking like, yeah, well, peace sounds great, but what about all the years that I just invested in the wrong relationship? We're covering that topic next week. But if this video spoke to you, let me know in the comments where you are at in learning to trust God right now. And if you want to go deeper, remember to grab the free workshop in the description box, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.